There are certain qualities that you might notice that some wealthy people seem to have, and maybe you just haven't been able to put your finger on what it is. It's not necessarily in the way they dress, it's not necessarily in their attitudes, because there's a lot of different types of people who are affluent and wealthy, who have confidence and seem very content and happy in their lives, but we can't really figure out what it is that makes all of them seem so similar. But I'm going to share with you what I've learned over 30 years dealing with many affluent clients and also colleagues and family members and friends, and the things that I've noticed that they all have in common. And these are all items that we can apply to our lives today. If you're new here, my name is Michelle Pava. I'm a licensed psychotherapist and I focus on finance therapy. Now, what I would love for you to do is to subscribe and ring the bell so that we can stay connected and that I can still create free content and resources. Speaking of, below I have a link for free resources for you and another way that we can stay connected. But let's talk about some of these attributes or habits that I've noticed over 30 years in working with very affluent clients. Number one, they don't see fear the same way that a lot of other people do. I've noticed that some of my clients look at fear as something that they want to really avoid and they run from it. And they spend a lot of their lives running from fear, running from memories, running from love, running from all types of things that might cause them fear or even discomfort. And they also will sometimes attack the fear. So they become too aggressive and too energetic. And in both of those cases, they're spending a lot of energy surrounding fear in a way that's not really doing anything for them, right? But people that are more affluent, I've noticed, they look at fear as a door opener. They look at it if it's something about them. They want to see what is the door that might open if I gently sit with this fear and let it sort of simmer and see where it's coming from. What will come up for me? What brainstorm or what solution might come from addressing the fear, not fighting it, not running from it. The other thing that I notice that a lot of wealthy people tend to do is when they have fear, they don't go into a space of denial that it's not really there. And that is something else that I do see with people that are not as affluent, that they will look at fear and they will sort of shrink away from it, pretend it's not there, and only address it when it's just really in their face. Where someone who is more affluent, or the people that I've worked with that are more affluent, they seem to look at fear and really be okay with it. They understand that the feelings of fear are much more big than some of the situations of fear. And they seem to look at it a little bit differently. They see it again as a door opener, not as something that they need to put a band-aid over or run away from or spend a lot of energy addressing and fighting. They sort of save their energy, let the fear come towards them, sit with it, and then turn that fear into a different type of energy. That kind of attitude also keeps them from staying in bad relationships or bad jobs or careers or different projects that they really don't want to be in. It even stops them from being in places and situations that they just don't like, where someone who is afraid and more fear-based, they tend to stay in bad relationships. They tend to stay in jobs that are going nowhere, and even in situations that are really not serving them because they're afraid of what's on the other side of it. So that is one of the things that I notice between people that are less affluent and people that are more affluent in terms of fear. Something that I've noticed that more affluent clients have done through the years as opposed to my clients who were not as affluent, and that is shrink from conflict. A lot of the times the clients who are really struggling the most have a lot of secrets, they have a lot of shame, they have a lot of blame happening, they hold a lot in. They're not as forthright. Now, they're not lying, but they're holding a lot of truth in because they feel a certain type of way. Now, people who are more affluent and confident that I've noticed through the years, they tend to not have that. They tend to be okay with conflict and they sort of want to get over it. They want to work through it. They also are not so impatient to work through something that they glaze over it. So that is, I should mention something else that I've noticed with my less affluent clients. They tend to either sit with it too long or they want to just pretend it's not there. They want to be in denial. Like, okay, I've talked to you about it, I got it out, and now I should be over it. So they will struggle often with, why am I not over this yet? Or They will really hold on to a certain type of mindset where they just don't want to let something go. They don't want to be truthful about something about themselves. And that lack of truth gives them a lot of shame. And all of that shame and blame and spiraling and guilt holds them where they are. And the doors are not opening for them because they are feeling a certain way about themselves. Where someone who I've noticed who tends to be more affluent and someone who tends to be more confident and happier in their life, not because of the money, but because of their confidence, they tend to see conflict as something that builds relationships. When they see someone with a different opposing view, they don't immediately want to attack the person. They seem to be more open-minded. They have a wider scope of friends, and they also seem to build relationships more. They seem to see conflict as a way to get over something and let's see what makes the other person tick. What can I learn from them? And what could I maybe teach them as well? It's definitely a give and take, where some of the conflict that I notice with the clients who struggle more want to convince someone to do things their way, or they even sometimes want to manipulate someone to do things a certain way. Now, I'm not saying that if you're struggling, you're a manipulator, but I'm saying in my experience, sometimes the people that are really in a deep spiral really have no other way in their mind of creating peace. So they think that they have to create a fictional peace. And that's not the way it is at all. You can be truthful. And actually, if you're not able to be truthful with the people in your life, then they're not the people that should be in your life. So having a more affluent mindset or a more wealth-based mindset or a more fiscal mindset is about being confident in yourself and being able to be open and truthful and be yourself and be accepted for that. And if you can't be accepted for that with the people that you're around, you can't be around them. They're holding you back then. I do notice that my more affluent clients through the years seem to see conflict as a way to build resilience and build strength, as opposed to someone who might be struggling more, they see conflict as something that breaks them down. Something else that I've noticed through the years with my affluent clients is they seem to feel like the word can't or the word quit or nope are the worst four-letter words. So they don't like having limits on them. Where my clients who struggle more just assume that they can't do things. They believe the money story and the self-value story that someone else threw at them. And they stay in that space. They don't want to expand out of it. Well, I shouldn't say that. They want to expand out of it, but they have a really hard time believing that they can. Where my more affluent clients just assume that if you say no or you can't do that or whatever to them, that it's just a matter of, well, we need to see things eye to eye. They are not oppositional, but they have a wider kind of bird's eye view of situations and they don't see themselves as being too limited. So my more affluent clients don't see themselves as being limited. Even in the face of a pandemic, even in the face of a crisis that they might be going through, those clients tend to see everything as an opportunity. I saw a lot of people online as soon as COVID hit. There were a lot of people, the majority of them were complaining. You might remember that when the pandemic first hit, there was a period of time where we were all realizing we needed to get a mask. And at that moment, I did see so many people just complaining. Either they were complaining or they were acting like, this isn't going to happen. That's two sides of the same coin. Again, let's go back to the person who's struggling more. They're either going to be in denial or they're going to try to fight it and be really anxious. So you saw a lot of people just being anxious and a lot of people in denial. But you also saw a group of people that were making masks and using beautiful fabrics and learning how and teaching other people how to do it. You saw companies like Joanne Fabric, if you're familiar with that company, that were really pulling together to help individuals to make face masks. So you see how different people can have the same situation, but they look at it very, very differently. So there was a group of people early on that made money and are still making money in making and creating beautiful, beautiful face masks. And there's still people in denial and there's still people that are complaining. Meanwhile, the people that are making the face masks or doing the other types of things that would be helpful right now are not only feeling good about themselves because they're contributing to society and the greater good, but they're also making some money. So as you can see, that's just on a really small scale, but just multiply that by 2,000, 3,000, and you can see how having a different type of a mindset when you're faced with a problem can really create a different outcome rather than an outcome of struggling. Now, here's a biggie. People that are more affluent, who tend to have more of an income, these are the people who tend to, yeah, they might have some name brand items, okay? They might, some luxury items. You might notice it, but they tend to not flaunt it. People who are struggling or come from such a raw place of struggle or such a raw place of deprivation, they tend to be more decked out in the name brands and place more importance on name brands. So those people are more focused on the name brand gives them confidence, where the person who's more affluent, but when they're wearing it, you're seeing them, not the name brand necessarily. When someone who's really struggling is wearing something with a name brand, they make a point of they want you to know that they're wearing something that's a name brand. Does that make sense? So both people could technically be wearing, say, Gucci sneakers and a Louis Vuitton belt. And the person who's really struggling is going to have a different kind of demeanor and projection of what they are as a person wearing it, as opposed to the person who just happens to be wearing it. Does that make sense to you? The person who is wearing it for a sense of self-affirmation and identity is going to really put all the focus into look what I'm wearing, or look at the car I drive, or look at me in some way, where the person who is more affluent or wealthy may not really put that energy into the externals as much, even if they own the same things. And even though that my more affluent clients and colleagues do have nice things, they seem to put more of an importance on time and time spent with family and even just time for their passions and for their health and self-care. The people who are struggling more really just focus on getting stuff. And those people tend to have more clutter because they're just really trying to fill up their sense of self-worth with stuff, where someone who's more affluent might just buy one or two things here and there, but they spend more time focused on feeling comfortable and having time and relaxing rather than chasing more stuff. So I hope this has helped you. I have another video for you. And again, please subscribe and ring the bell. It really helps me to create more free resources for you and more video content.